Hey guys, welcome to Know Your Gear QA 100, episode 145. It's Valentine's Day, so I don't know how many of you are going to join me for today. I'm hoping a good amount, but not a great amount, because I'm sure you guys and gals out there have something to do that's more important than this, but I appreciate you hanging out with me. So a couple things as we start every live show, a couple announcements. First, if you want to ask a question, please start the question in the comments with a question mark first. That's how I know you're asking a question and not just chatting back and forth. The other thing is, if you're watching the rebroadcast of this show, there's a index that I typed down below of all the questions and subjects, so you can go right to that if you don't want to watch the whole entire thing. And also, of course, you can stream this on iTunes and SoundCloud as a podcast and just listen to it if you're interested in just listening to something in the car or somewhere, something like that. And so a couple things. Let's I got a cup of water, or a glass of water, I should say. Hold on a second. So I am ready for the questions. Hold on, I got my right screens up. I do. Look at that. And today I'm wearing a very special shirt. I'm wearing a Chibson shirt. So I bumped into the guys at Chibson. Yes, there's guys at Chibson. This is real. At the NAMM show, and they gave me some stickers, and we chatted for a few minutes, and they sent me this shirt, and I'm sending them a special shirt that my wife is designing. That is really, I love it. In fact, I'll probably have her make me one as well. I'm really excited about it. Anyways, I love this shirt. So if you guys, I'll put a link right now. If you guys don't know who this is, Chibson is a I guess we'll say parody. They do a Instagram. They have a YouTube channel as well, but I'll link you to both. But the Daily Dose, if you just want a good chuckle, go on Instagram. You know what? I'm going to share one with you. I don't even know what will be on there, so maybe it will be funny. Maybe it won't. Give me a second. I'm going to go right to it. So they're on Instagram. You just look up Chibson. I promise you, if you're looking for just a good, nerdy chuckle, as you know, it's Chibson USA, which even makes it better. Chibson USA. And what they do, let's click on it, and then let me share with you guys. Let me go to my share screen. Give me a second. Here we go. Share this. And ta-da! Today's Instagram is the bait and switch distortion pedal. Rat your friends out. So they make these funny, funny things like, oh, this is awesome. This is the, for $8.99, you can get the Guitar Center White Noise Sleep Machine, the only sleep machine designed specifically for guitarists. It's the sound of Guitar Center. Noise machine. There's so many. I don't want to ruin them. Go over there and check them out. I found them, and I've been showing them to everybody I see just because it kind of makes me laugh. Let me close it back out. And so I'm just sharing that with you. And of course, there's a Chibson shirt. If you want a Chibson shirt, I think what does the rest say? Let's see. Let me model it. It says only a Chibson is good enough. Good fun. You know what I mean? It's just good fun. I hope deep down, seriously, so you guys know, I hope deep down Gibson finds this funny. I always love it when somebody can find humor in the, in their jokes. I've tried to find humor or try to laugh at myself over the years, when people like made ball jokes. Hey, your head's like a cue ball. It's funny. Like I always tell you guys about how I have to wear a hat during the live show. I don't actually have to this live show because with the new setup, I don't have down lighting now. It's all front lighting. I don't have to, but remember when I was talking about how it shines off my head? When I did my Steve I interview, that was one of the problems I was dealing with, was my whole head, because they lighted the room. And of course they didn't think pale, bald, white guy was what you were going to light for. So I look like my head is just glowing like a light bulb. So I had to tame that down, and even then it's pretty bad. So when you watch the Steve I video, if you want to just make jokes about my big glowing head, it's fine with me. It's fine. Anyways, okay, so there's 300 of us. Like I said, I figured it would be a little lower today. That's why I went last minute for Valentine's Day, which is good. I still like it. It may actually make it a better show if I can track what's going on with the comments. This is Louis66 did a question. It's not for me, but it's a question. It was a question for Ben Coombs. Sorry, Ben. Ben Coombs. It says, what does it mean, the spanner next to your name? He's talking about the spanner wrench next to somebody's name. That means I've clicked them and let them be a moderator. So I usually pick like patrons, people I've recognized for years, coming on the channel. And I'll click them, and you can make them moderators, so they can actually put people in timeout or actually remove people if they're on the thing. And I usually want a bunch of people moderating because, I don't want somebody like one guy or one person just kicking people out, doing stuff that doesn't sound right. So I do pick people that I trust, or people that I know, like Ben, who does this as well every day. And it's not so much the negative things, just helps. And also what's great for me is if some of my moderators like Todd Flowers right now, BB Ninja, if they post something, not only will I highlight them so I can see them faster, but also they might want to bring something to my attention real fast. So, which is good. And that sometimes helps. Ben says, nice new shelves. I posted on Instagram today a little quick video about the shelves. I got them at IKEA. I'll put a link when I index it to the Instagram feed, or maybe I'll put it on Facebook too. But either way, that's where I posted it. Quick little video. I got this at IKEA. What's funny was I gutted the closet. So that was the closet behind me. And it was a large closet, as you can see, 3-door closet. This is a very small room. So it was cool. And I thought, I used to have like my, storage in there, and a desk. I had some counters and stuff in there, our tables. Anyways, long story short, I thought, let's do a build out. That's what I told my wife. I go, let's do a build out and build out a thing for amps. And I was about to do it. And of course, every time you do something like that, a project in the house, I sometimes feel like, well, maybe I should check, make sure before I go to Home Depot and buy all this wood and check things out. And I went on to IKEA. And of course, this thing came right up, and I read the dimensions and I almost didn't believe it because it's almost perfect with the 30-inch wide shelving units. And as you can see, I'm putting full combos. This is a deluxe reverb behind me. And in fact, I have what looks like 412s behind me. Which way am I doing? There it is. But they're actually large 212s. But again, it accommodates everything, little heads. And it's modular. It moves around. I mounted it straight to the wall. But more importantly, it had wood shelves. And I was able to do some stuff to them, which maybe I should do a video about that. So everybody asked me about noise and vibrating. Well, I mounted them to the wall. And then, of course, I put dampening on the wood shelves, which was not hard to do at all. I just used some like felt. And then when I put the wood in the corners, like imagine like a V, I pressed it in there tight so there's no rattling. And it's been working great. So just thought I'd share that with you. But there you go, IKEA shelves. I know. It's like IKEA is like there's one of those, like, I'm happy they exist and I hate that they exist for a ton of both reasons. Okay. So, and then Pooh Ninja says, is that HP? He means Henning Polig shelving unit. No, Henning built his out of wood. He just built it out of wood, which is pretty much what I was going to do. Just build one out of wood. But one of the downfalls was I'm not a head person. So I'll explain the shelving unit. That's important. Maybe it's important you guys understand. A lot of times when you see a lot of, especially YouTube channels, but just people who have shelving units, they're putting heads in the units, and they're running all the heads through a switcher and then into like one cabinet, or in Henning's case, he'll run it to a 2-notes DI box and stuff. And of course, he has a cabinet as well too. I don't want that. In fact, none of my amps are hooked up to any kind of switching. I don't want any of that stuff. What I want to be able to do is, like, whatever amp, like right now, of course, I'm in my Princeton mood. So it's right there. Whatever amp I'm in the mood for, I'll put it right there. I'll just pick the one up above it and put it down below. So, and then you can tell whatever heads I'm using because the 2 cabinets I have hooked up, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not using that Marshall cabinet. I'm using this McKnight, Mojo Tone McKnight cabinet, or Know Your Gear cabinet, whatever. It's the Mojo Tone cabinet. And right now I'm running my Dirty Shirley through it. Look at that. I'm actually getting good at pointing. And so whatever head, I can tell you right now, whatever head's there is what I'm using. So that amp and the one there. And then below the Princeton is my other amp. So I wanted to be able to swap out my amps. I don't want a switching unit. It's not what I'm up to. The Hughes and Kittner, I turned it on just because it looked pretty. So it's not hooked up to anything. It's and don't worry, you won't hurt it. It's in standby mode and it's totally fine. It has a load. I put a load on it, so we're good. But I did it just for the, I thought that looked cooler. So yeah, that's why I did it this way. Again, I don't want this studio rig of switching amps. I just wanted to be able to present my amps, not so much as a backdrop for the videos, although that's helpful. I just needed a place to stack amps because I was getting sick of how wide the. Okay, we got a super chat. It's from Dan Brown. let's click that for a second. Dan Brown says my PRS. Oh man, so it's tiny. I can't see it now. Okay, it says my PRS 305 sounds weak in the 4th position, but fine in the 5th and 3rd. Any idea? Hold on. Any idea what the issue is? Well, that doesn't sound right. Let me tell you right there. And the problem with the 305. So the 305, so you guys know, is the next iteration of the 513 by PRS, which was 5 pickups and 13 switching combinations, and then 305 is like what, 3 pickups and whatever, I don't know, 30 switches and 5 whatever. Somebody will put it in the comments, but the point is there's a lot of electronics in there. So what I would do, honest with you, Dan, that doesn't sound right. I've played enough of these type of guitars to know that you shouldn't be noticing any issues like that. So the fact that you're noticing an issue like that, I don't know about the 305s, but the 513s for a little while were plagued with bad wiring issues. You know what I mean? Plague meaning, it was common enough that if you heard a problem, you're like, yes. In fact, one of my teachers that worked for me had a 513 and had to go back to PRS and get redone because it had some issues. So I would get somebody on the phone, Dan at PRS on the tech side, and get somebody to talk to you on that. It might have to go to them for service. I mean, that's part of the problem when a company tries to do something cutting edge, like make all that routing and stuff in there. It doesn't take much. A bad short, bad soldering point, a component. I mean, there could be all kinds of stuff in there. So be aware of that. How do I unhighlight that? That's the problem, I think, with the highlighting thing is, does anyone know how to unhighlight? So make sure Dan's not on there all the time, or do I constantly highlight now that I've clicked that? What else do we got? Hold on a second. Let me go. I have StreamYard gives you a screen and it's kind of nice, but I still prefer the original screen. Yeah, Jeff said a bad short, not like the good shorts. Well, yes. So it's sometimes the way we say the words doesn't make sense. It's like George Carlin, right? Basically, that's a George Carlin joke. George Carlin says they call it when two airplanes. George Carlin says when two planes almost hit each other, they call it a near miss. And he goes, what I mean? He's like, it doesn't make any sense. A collision is a near miss. All right. I thought I saw another super chat. Hold on a second. There was one before I even started. It's from Sarang, so I want to get that one out there too. Hold on. I also want to see if I can unhighlight this question. I hate it when we're dealing with like the technical difficulties, but I don't know how to unhighlight a question. I know how to. Oh, okay. Do that. All right, maybe that works. All right, we got Sarang. He says, hey, Phil, hope you're doing well. I'm doing great, buddy. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone again. To brighten up my Ibanez RG, he's using brighten like the sound, not brighten like the color. Should I put a 1 meg potentiometer in the tone position of or the volume position? Cheers and thanks. So what he's talking about is the fact that it notoriously, obviously in an Ibanez RG, a dual humbucker guitar, it's going to have 500K potentiometers, and single coil guitars will generally have 250K potentiometers. Active pickups generally have 25K potentiometers. I think it was like Jazzmasters. Somebody was like, help me out. Some Jaguars or Jazzmasters originally had 1 megs in them. I'm doing off memory, but anyways, 1 megs. If you put 1 meg potentiometer in a guitar like that Ibanez that has 500Ks, more highs will get through. Is the way I say it. It's really less of that will get through. It's more of a resistance issue, but either way, it'll be brighter. That's all I'm trying to say. Your ear will notice a brighter difference. If you put it, I don't think it'll matter. If you put it in the tone pot or the volume pot, first of all, I would go ahead and I would say run it on the volume pot. But here's what I want to tell you. First, if you're going to do it, probably do it to both potentiometers. It won't matter. The other thing is, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference. So don't worry too much about it. I don't think a 1 meg on a guitar like that. I think I remember, what's funny is I remember hearing that PRS originally, kick the desk. PRS originally was using 1 meg pots in their guitars, but I've never seen them. Every time I open up a PRS, even older ones, they always had 500Ks in there. But my thought, buddy, would be just to go ahead and get 2 1 meg pots. They're not expensive. Wire one into your volume and see what happens. if you like it. It's easy. That way you don't have to undo the tone cap, you know, the capacitor for the tone pot. I don't know why I'm calling it a tone cap. I guess because it's a near miss. Anyways, I would just replace the volume pot, and then if you get the difference you want, good. If not, just go ahead and do both. See what happens. So, but yeah, it's a good idea. I think you fundamentally have a good idea to check it out. So, and I like that idea. Then most people would just want to bypass the tone control completely, but I actually like the idea of doing what you're doing a little bit more. You never know. You might get lucky. Okay. Hold on. Sunday Matinee says 1 meg would be much brighter, I would think. It could be. The problem with this whole thing is it's just one factor in the equation. In other words, if you, like I said, let's use the Jazzmaster. Here's what I would imagine. Let's use a P90. If I was using a P90 and you had 500K and you go to 1 meg, I think it makes a difference. Sometimes the humbuckers are an interesting thing. Sometimes humbuckers are just dark sounding. They get that way. And there's nothing you can do to brighten them up. I've tried that before. And the problem is I've seen it where a type of humbucker is not a type, a single one. So what I mean by that is, let's use an example like that Ibanez. They'll have Ibanez RG. He didn't say which one, but maybe it has, you know, Ibanez preparatory pickups in it. Sometimes I've had that with Ibanez where the pickup is very dark sounding. It's really kind of like this, and there's just nowhere to get the clarity out of it. And everything you do, you just never get that clarity out of it. Even when you try to use an EQ and EQ it out, anything, it just really has that kind of muffled, dark sound. But the reason why I say that pickup is, I mean, I could take 2 other guitars with the same guitars, the same pickups, and they don't have that problem. It's just sometimes, you know, something happens the way they get wired. Not to mention, we live in a world, you understand, like we live in a world where I generally don't trust every single thing that comes out of a factory. I don't care if it's Indonesian factories, American factories. You know, factories are factories. Factories are people, and people make mistakes, and people do weird things. People run out of wire, and they got 2 more guitars to complete until they go home for the day. You know what I mean? It's just a weird thing. You know what I mean? So, you know, so it's, again, different things. It could always be something out there. It's strange. Dan Kish says, on behalf of the Great Lakes guitar pickups, how should I reach out and send you pickups for the 2020 pickup reviews? Great guy, great prices, great pickups. Okay, great. Dan, thank you. So on behalf, so Dan is just a viewer who wants me to feature the Great Lakes. It's super easy, and the gates are wide open now. I have the guitar. I've started the process of doing the content for that series. I'm hoping that the first one comes out next week, although I'm just saying I'm hoping. Remember, I was talking about in January. This is a big project, and actually some other great opportunities came up from it. So to answer your question, if a pickup company wants to be involved in this pickup videos where I do the reviews of pickups, it's pretty simple. They're going to have to send a set of pickups, and to make things easy, I'm just going to make a small fee. And what the fee is, it wasn't a fee before. What it was before is they had to buy 2 cartridges for their pickups for the guitar. And now what I'm going to do is just probably charge them a small fee, which covers the cartridges. And I'm just going to start. So what I'm saying that is I got to talk to the owner of the pickup, the guitar company Monday or next week. And when I do, I plan to just buy a bunch of cartridges, and then I'm just going to have people reimburse me for the cartridges. So that's all they got to do. It's a couple $100, and they send me 2 pickups, and they're done. If they want the pickups back, I can send the pickups back. Obviously, I'm not going to refund the money for the cartridges. And in some cases, if they're small pickup builders, again, I want to try everything case by case. If they don't have some companies just are strapped. If you don't have the money for the cartridges, it's just a lot more work for me if I have to do it always the other way. But that's all I have to do. Contact me. So Dan, the easiest way of what I'm trying to say is just have them contact me. Contact me. If you're contacting me about the pickup thing, please email me at pmcknight7@gmail.com. I'll put a thing when I index it to that email address. That email address, I can tell you right now, if you have a business question, I immediately will answer those through the business questions, because obviously, you know, I need to keep stuff going if I want to make content. This is content. This is 50. I need 50 of these things. So I have good amount. I think I have 10 or 15 now, something like that. So, I mean, we're good. But because obviously, you know, the max I can put out is 1 a week. So we're good for a couple months, but of course it'd be nice to do that to get it all figured out. Okay. Hold on. There was a sign on. I loved it. Where was it? My knees hurt. I don't even know what he's going to say. I just wanted to say my knees hurt. My knees hurt. PB Bandit 75. I have one. I hate it. Okay. I'm sure he was talking to somebody else. I just wanted to say my knees hurt because it's kind of funny. Okay. Let me go back over to my other screen. It's almost 600 of us. That's why I noticed it's like all of a sudden it started moving a little faster. Okay. We have the next is from Shawnee is a Cubs fan. Hey, Shawnee, how's it going? Hi, Phil. Have you ever played a made in Japan Fender Stratocaster? I have many times. Probably in the last 30 days. I think I picked one up in a store, one or two. How do they compare to the American guitars? Cheers from Chicago. You know, it depends. Like some people say, oh, they're far superior to the American Fenders. You know, I don't know if I could say the build quality is superior. I know that's what kind of a lot of people will say. What I will tell you is that a lot of times the necks are thinner. They're like a thinner neck, faster neck. Sometimes the term faster is used where the idea is maybe it's even not even thinner. Sometimes it's just carved in a much more comfortable, shreddy way. In other words, the way the neck carves changes the way your hand wants to play. So sometimes if a neck's not only thinner, but carved in a certain way, you want to shred scales versus do chords. And the Fenders, the Japanese ones just have those kind of cooler, smaller necks, generally speaking. So I'm sure somebody will go, hey, I have a Fender made in Japan and the neck's chunky. Yeah, of course, there's all variations, but generally speaking, the ones I picked up, the necks are a little faster, a little smoother. Quality guitars, plus they were really known for being good. This is where it gets tricky. This is why I said sometimes you have to watch, you know, just taking something that was relevant 10 years ago and spewing it out now. Or spewing it out now. They were great 10 years ago because they were cheap. You could get a made in Japan Fender, which was a lot of musicians, a lot of guitar players believe to be equal to in quality the American one, and you'd pick it up for half the price. They're going up there in price now. I mean, they don't seem super expensive. I think I saw one recently, like I said, within the last couple of weeks, and I think it was like $600-700, but a used American Strat was like $800-900 maybe. So again, not a huge savings, but very cool guitars. Definitely won't have any problems with them. So the only thing also weird about some of the 80s era or late 80s Japanese Stratocasters, a lot of them you have to be prepared for the fact they have a lot of weird stuff on them, like maybe a weird locking mechanism or a strange bridge. That stuff actually is cool because it's different, but you also, if you're looking for a more traditional guitar, some of them are like that. Wolverine, hey Wolverine. Wolverine is a patron, and so I'm just pointing out. Thanks Wolverine for supporting both here and on Patreon. It says my wife got me a Gibson LPDC P90, $5.99 sale at Guitar Center. Love it, but notes on the low fret G string are too sharp. Thought though intonated at the 12th fret. So okay, so what that could be. So, you know, what that could be, there's a couple things that could cause that. It could be the actual height of the string. You know what I mean? I would have to know the measurements. So for instance, there could be a couple things. One, you could have the string height just a little too high. So by the time you push it down on the fret, you're now going to push that a little sharp. That happens. The other thing is sometimes not every guitar is made for every player. Sometimes maybe the way you squeeze really hard, and that neck and the way that lines up, that's just, you know, you're pushing it sharp. So a couple suggestions for you is check the action, make sure the action is not too high. Generally, a low action won't cause you to go sharp, but the high actions will. And also the other thing is you might have, especially on the G string, you might be using too light of gauge of strings. And you said your wife got you a Les Paul DC and P90. What I don't know is it's a $599. So I'm assuming it's a new one. And I can tell you, I didn't mention it, and I created a new we'll talk about this. I used to have my list, right? My list. I have something cool I'm very excited about that I came up with, and it's based on your guys' feedback. Again, I really pride myself on trying to listen to everything you guys are saying and try to glean something that improves what we do here. And one of the things that I was interesting about that thin Les Paul Lite that I got was it had 9 to 46 hybrids, which I didn't mention in the video. And I later, you know, it's one of those things like when you're editing and done and you go, why didn't I mention that? And sometimes you miss a detail, you know what I mean? Even though you knew it, I knew it going in. I just, you know, when you're talking, I'm not reading a script, and I don't want a script because I like to freeform this, one, because it's funner for me, and two, because a script is, I'm not a good actor, and you have to be a little bit of an actor to read a script. I don't, you know what I mean? You have to be able to present in a way that doesn't seem like it is a good guitar and I think you should get one too. So, you know what I mean? You have to be a little freeform on that. So what I did is I created a new list, and the list is, these are things that I'll have to address in every guitar review from now on. And so I'm gonna read the list. And this is, I'm just curious, maybe you guys are interested. So my new list, so it's a 10 list, you know, as George Carlin is, I know I'm a George Carlin fan. George Carlin said it's called the 10 Commandments, so it sounds official. So no offense to anyone, just other than just entertaining his joke. I liked it. I love that he said 10 just sounds official. Sounds like it means something because it's official. So 10, I have 10. These are 10 questions that from now on, when I do a guitar review, pretty much all reviews, but a guitar review, that I will be answering in the video. Where is it made? What does it sell for? Who would be the right type of player for this guitar? So is it, you know, do I feel it's a blues, or these are just opinions, right? Of course, you know, these aren't facts. Is the guitar for beginners, intermediate, or pro level players? In other words, what is it geared towards? Geared towards. What does the neck feel like? So in other words, I'll make sure to describe that more. I do that. All these things are things I've done in videos, but I'm going to start making sure that it's like a checklist. As I'm communicating, I'll make sure not to read a script, but I'll make sure to address these questions. And if I'm editing, I'll know, oh, I never answered that one of this 10, and I'll make sure that's in there. The next question is, what are the materials used on the neck, the fretboard, the body, the bridge, the pickups, and the nut, and the electronics? What do I feel the best feature of this guitar is? What should your expectation be? And here's the guidelines. Your expectation should be, this guitar is perfect. It may need some love, or it's great for modifications. That's a great way to say it's a cheap guitar, right? Like a glary guitar, it would get a rating of great for modifications. Right? Because it's okay. The next one is learning curve. Is it easy, moderate, difficult, or very difficult? This is great because I'll probably use this obviously when I'm talking about amps and pedals as well and stuff. But that, you know, like I said, obviously I don't think most guitars will be hard to figure out. I don't mean play, but figure out. And the last question is, what comes with it? So if it comes with a gig bag, a case, or, you know, what tools, I'll make sure to always highlight the stuff that came with it. And the other reason is because as much as I think we like unboxings and don't like unboxings, I don't enjoy unboxings. It seems like a weird thing. Just open this box. I think I don't know if it's the box part. I'm experimenting, if you notice in the last few videos, where I just rush the unboxing part and get right to the stuff, but I go through the stuff that was in the box. I think that's what people care about, right? We don't care about the box. We care about what was in the box. What comes with this product? So those are some stuff. So in that case, Wolverine, and hopefully I'll be able in those questions to answer questions like this, so this doesn't happen. So I would check to also make sure, because if it's 9 to 46, that G string is actually a lighter string than the 10 gauge set. All right. So it should be what, 9, 11, what is it, 15 or 16? Somebody, you know, I'm not looking at a pack now and I got to do off memory. But then the third set, the second set will be probably like 24, 36, and 46 or something like that. So that could be your problem, is your string is too light and you mean to switch over to 10s, man. That could be as easy as that. So I don't know why, but I noticed that Gibson's doing that more and more, the hybrid set. So I hope that helps. So, okay. Let me try to do, because a lot of you guys are doing questions out here that are non-super chats. Let me get the non-super chat questions. Sunday Matinee wants me to also ask, does it gent? See, that's Jared's thing. But yes, I understand. Dirt Racer X says, love George Carlin. I love George Carlin. You know, I'm a huge fan. I've been a huge fan. So, you know, George Carlin, I'm such a huge George Carlin fan that when I joined the Army, this is absolutely true, obviously, but it just sounds like a strange story. But I love George Carlin so much that when my mother asked me what I wanted, when I joined the Army, you know, my mom had that like moment where she's like, "Oh, you're going to go to boot camp, you know, like, would you want a cake? What do you want?" And I could have and my mom was, you know, obviously an amazing woman, and she was like, anything you want. And I said, I want to see George Carlin. And so she took me, and it just worked out this way. The night before I went to basic training, I got to go see George Carlin. She took me, her and her friend took me to see George Carlin and go have dinner. And I had, I remember what I had. I had oysters, Rockefeller, and chicken Sonoma. I don't know what chicken Sonoma is, but you just remember something. I don't know what it is. You remember that before you get up in the morning and get on a plane scared to death to go to basic training. But anyways, that's what happened. So George Carlin not only is special to me because he was an amazing comedian and stuff, but that's just like my memory of, and this is going to sound weird, guys, and it's the memory of when my youth ends. Does that make sense? Like, I think everybody like remembers like the end of your youth. I'm not saying I was a man because I went to basic training. I just feel like when you go to basic training, you're like, okay, I'm not going to be the same dude I was yesterday. And so it just connected. So that's my story. I thought I'd share my George Carlin story. And it says Rockefeller. Yeah. What did I say? Oysters, Rockefeller, right? That's what it is. So the restaurant is called Buddy's down in Tucson. I think they went out of business. I don't know. They might still have one left. Great place if you're in Tucson. So okay, I'm just reading some of the comments. Okay, let's go ahead. And then On the Road says, are you sure you went to watch George Carlin? I am very positive of it. Yes. Yeah, it was in, so think of this, that was 95. So it was October of 95. I'm sure if you could look at his tour dates, you'll see he was in Tucson, October of 95, because that's when I saw him. So I also remember because when I asked my recruiter, I'm just going to share this with you. Maybe you guys will find this funny because you guys, a lot of you know I live in Arizona. When I joined the Army, I asked the recruiter, what should I take to basic training? And he said, and I quote, you could bring nothing but the shirt on your back and you'd be fine. I literally took that to heart and I left with literally the clothes on my back. So I went to basic training with a pair of shorts, tennis shoes, and a t-shirt. And what I didn't know is that when I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky in October, that they weren't going to issue me clothes and uniforms for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. So I was in processing for a week, freezing. This is a true story. And and I was standing in formation one morning, at 5 a.m, waiting for chow hall, freezing to death. Because of course, I was a kid from Tucson and no pants. Like I said, somebody said shirt, no pants, just literally shorts. I was freezing. I'll never forget this. And the drill sergeant walked up to me and goes, what is wrong with you? Because I was shivering. I was chattering. My teeth were chattering. And he goes, what is wrong with you? And I said, I'm from Tucson. And he said, carry on. And he walked away. I'm sure even then, even he was thinking, this dumb kid. So dumb. All right, then we'll go back to guitar stuff. All right, so we have Grumpy Mike. Hey, Grumpy Mike, it's good to see you this week. Grumpy Mike's also a patron. Thank you again, supporting me both sides of the fence, so to speak. It's looking like the new Epiphones have some fret issues. Are you hearing anything about this? No, Mike, and again, I don't have to, I'd have to know what fret issues are, but I don't consider fret sprout to be fret issues. And the reason is because I've said this before. If you notice, like whenever I've critiqued a guitar, even if I've, said I was upset or I didn't like a guitar, I didn't like something about it, it's not the fret sprout, because fret sprout I feel is a harder thing to control. You know what I mean? So again, I don't know if that's what you're talking about. I don't know if the issue is fret sprout, but fret sprout. And fret sprout, again, is where the neck shrinks and the frets stick out. Because in a world where they're making, I feel, and I think a lot of you feel this way, they're making way too many guitars. Everybody, not just Epiphone, everybody, making way too many guitars. So, because we're making way too many guitars, we're making them so fast that there's going to be issues. But I haven't heard anything. I like to get my hands on some Epiphones. I really do. I know you guys want to. I know that's, it's coming. You know what I mean? As you guys know, I've worked with, or I've talked to now some retailers, and the retailers are willing to work with me, and that's great. We're getting a lot of stuff done. In fact, I have a video probably, hopefully will be done this week coming, that's going to be involved with the retailer. That's a cool product that you guys have specifically been asking for, and you'll see, when you see it, you'll know. You're like, oh yes, finally. Like it'll be like 2 years you guys have been asking for this. And it's not a guitar, it's actually something cooler. And so I know I haven't heard anything, but Grumpy Mike, I'd like to check him out. I mean, I'm really kind of stoked about that. Is Shinnery you kid? I don't know why. Is Shinnery you kid? That I'm probably saying wrong. I like the BB1 and the BB2 in my Les Paul Trad, so the traditional Les Paul traditional. But I'm looking for something that is PAF inspired with more bite for rock punk. Any suggestions? I'm probably the wrong guy to ask on this for the Gibson stuff. I really like the 57 classics in my Les Pauls. As you guys know, my SG has the 61s, and I think that's what they're putting in some of the newer Les Pauls, like the classic this year and stuff, and last year. But they're okay. But I like the 57s. When me and Ralph did a review, I'll put a link to that. When I got him an SG, and then I had already got myself an SG. His had the 57s, mine the 61s. I thought everybody says in the comments his sounded better. His did sound better, the 57s. I almost thought about just putting 57s in my SG. I like the 61s, don't get me wrong, but I like the 57s. I don't know what it is. And it's usually, though, with companies, I like more of a 59 type pickup than a 57. But with Gibson, I just really like the 57s. So to your Burstbucker 1 and Burstbucker 2s, I'd go 57s. And I like Burstbuckers. I just don't like Burstbucker Pros. And when I say don't like them, I don't prefer them. I shouldn't say like or dislike, because it's just preference. Because to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure if I look around somewhere, I have that pickup in something and I'm using it. But it's not my preferred pickup in most situations. So, okay, what else do we got? Lawrence Petros says 57 classics are awesome pickups. I have a set in my SG and my Les Paul, so good. I agree. I think it's one of my favorite pickups. I think I've said this before. I will eventually do it. I will eventually do this. I have been swearing to my friends mostly, but I know I let it slip at least one of these live shows where I said I really want to put a set of Gibson 57 pickups in a PRS, because a lot of times when the people that don't like the PRS's guitars, the way they sound, they always say, oh, it sounds lifeless or this or whatever they say. And I think to myself, I wonder if it's the pickups, because I really feel connected to the Gibson 57 pickups. So I'm curious if I put a set of them in my PRS, if they make it sound different. You know, and Todd Flowers didn't agree with me. Again, different strokes for different folks. Todd likes 57s like me, so does Lawrence, but some of you guys are not going to like them as much. And I don't like them all the time and everything. So, but I would say if, you're looking for that more classic PAF tone in a Gibson, that's a great pickup and very consistent. That's another thing too. Some pickups I'm nervous to suggest to you guys because they're not very consistent. You know what I mean? I've had this issue with every, I don't want to say every brand, but basically every brand, where for some reason you can get the same type of pickup from the brand, but their specs are too general, I guess. You know what I mean? Maybe because it's a harder pickup to make and just there's variances in it. Vish A says PRS is not lifeless. Again, I know. You understand. I'll tell you a story about that. I was once in a meeting when I was a dealer. I was a Paul Reed Smith dealer when I was once in Paul's I wasn't in his office. I was in the room that's like adjacent to his office with a bunch of dealers. And not kiss and tell. I'm not going to kiss and tell, so I'm not going to say what dealer said it, but it was a large dealer. And I remember the shock when he said, my customers say that a PRS has no soul. And I remember, like, I was in the room, we all went, and it was fun. And, of course they handled it well, the PRS guys, and they so somebody says, you were a drug dealer? I was a PRS dealer. So anyways, my point is that is a common pushback to PRS guitars. You know what I mean? Hey, it's a common pushback to Ibanez guitars. It is. Again, I think it's funny. Like, anytime I critique a Gibson, positive or negative, I always think it's funny how people react. Like when I'll say something positive, they go, but you said something negative. How could you say something positive? I'm like, because there's things I love about Gibson, things I hate. There's things I like about PRS. There's things I hate. That's just the reality of it. I don't want to say hate, but you get the idea. There's things I like and dislike. I haven't found a perfect guitar. I think the idea is almost silly, but see, on the road says, Ibanez, no soul. Yeah, it could be. You know what my joke is about the no soul? So if you guys have one of those guitars and people give you that crap, let me tell you how I respond to that when people say it to me. Just so it's funny. When they'll say, pick your guitar. I'll pick I don't know. Let's see. I'll pick a guitar in the room. You know what? I like my halo. My halo's over there. Somebody says, "Oh, your halo has no soul." I say, "Well, it's not supposed to have a soul. It's an inanimate object." And then my joke is, if it had a soul, it was probably when it was a tree and we killed it. So that's my point, is the player has the soul, is my point. But I get what people mean. People mean that, the guitar, it's not connecting with them. I just think it's a harsh thing to say, because it does kind of insult the player a little bit when you say, oh, it doesn't have a soul. So Joe Saracirani, hold my beer. Yes. Well, you see, and that's, not that I want to start this argument, but it's a perfect example. I just had this happen to me. In fact, if Nathan's watching, he was with me, a friend of ours, and we were all talking in a public place with a bunch of people. And somebody mentioned Joe Saracirani, and I'm like, and as soon as I was spitting out, I love Joe Saracirani, my friend goes, oh, I hate that guy. The guy's got no soul. no soul in his playing. And then we were like, no, he's totally. But again, it's in everybody's perspective. It's just funny when they say that. So there you go for the rest. So I'm sure some of you guys got triggered, but please, calm down, sip some water. You'll be fine. Okay. All right. What else do we got? Where are we doing on time? We're doing good. Of course, we got to end almost on time today because it's Valentine's Day. So, and my wife has set up a surf and turf thing. We have friends coming over. Her family's coming over. It's weird. We're having like a giant potluck thing for Valentine's Day. So, going to have crab and steaks and stuff. And that's like a big deal for the weekend. Very excited about that. Your rack Matt says my rack looks like Hollywood Squares. Sure, I dig that. So you could see all these famous amps and famous people. Hydrate, people. There you go. Perfect example. Okay. Poo Ninja. I'll take the Fender Deluxe. I'll take the Fender Deluxe for the block. That's great. Oh, see, like I said, I love it. I love it. The one thing that's funny that I'm trying to do this year, because I've feedback. Last year I was so public. In other words, I was out in the public so much through these YouTuber events, through the amp group, where we did the amp. Oh, by the way, Mojo Tone's doing that amp thing. I'll put a link to that on March 28th, I'll put the dates. It's next month in March. And if you're interested in signing up for that in Phoenix, there's still slots open. So please check that class out. But not only that, but there's going to be a meetup at 7:00 after the class at the bar down the street, which I'll announce next week. I was going to say it this week, but the problem I have is I got to Google again and find the name of that stupid bar. It's a bar restaurant. It's a really nice kind of upscale bar restaurant right down the street. But what was I saying? What I was saying was, so I've been interacting with people so much. One of the things that I got as feedback from you guys personally, from not only viewers, but other YouTubers was that you guys like the channel, but when you meet me, I have a sarcastic tone. I'm very sarcastic, and I like to bust chops a lot, by the way. That's why Ralph usually busts my chops. I bust his chops. That's what we call it when we kind of razz each other. I don't know what you guys call this stuff, but we call it, busting someone's chops is when you basically, and so, what I was basically saying is I like it when people bust my chops because I like to do it back. I like to do it first, actually. So I'm trying to put more of that in the videos, more of that tone. I wasn't necessarily not doing it for any other reason. I just didn't know it landed sometimes. But sometimes you guys, sometimes I make comments in the videos and you guys are like, oh, I can tell you didn't like that. But you don't realize there's a little bit of my sarcasm that, because you guys don't know I'm that way, I am very sarcastic all the time. Like I said, people who know me will not only back that up, but some of them will tell you that I really need to knock it off. So let's see what else. Shenanigans. And we do shenanigans too. Okay, what else? Hold on, I'm just looking for questions. Any questions or comments? Anything interesting going on this week? Yash 1331 says we need a sarcasm tone pedal. That'd be good. Lawrence says he's fluent in sarcasm. Of course, right? It's just oh, great question. Wes McClanahan. So I'm going to say Wes McClanahan says, are distortion or overdrive pedals wait, I'm sorry, Wes. It just jumped, but hold on. I'm going to grab it. And if I can't find it, I remember what it said. There it is. Are distortion or overdrive pedals into a Boss Katana a waste of money? Great question. I actually had that idea to the point where I have a Katana. It's behind me. It's just up on the top tier rack. And I had this experience recently where I just bought one from a Guitar Center, and then I was running pedals through it. And in my opinion, the pedal sounded so much better than the amp sounded by itself. I mean, it was massively different. And I got this great idea for a video series, and I did a couple to test them out, and I shared them with patrons. The patrons saw them, and they were horrible. I don't know if the patrons didn't like them or like them. I didn't ask. I just posted them and said, what do you got? You know, I didn't ask them what they think. I just posted them, and I just didn't like them. But I like the end content, which is, so I want to review the new Katana. And so, you know, you can see it. It's up there. Katana. There you go. Top rack. Katana Mark II, whatever. I have one 50 watt. I will review it soon. In fact, it's on my, I can't see it, but it's on my board. I have a calendar board. Anyways, my point is, not only will I review it, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Is I really feel like if you put a good pedal through that amp, it's massively better, massively, in my opinion. And I think it's just really cool. And if you want to know what pedals I was running through it, I was trying everything. My Freewind Motor City drive sounded good. My Freewind BEOD sounded really good. My Zen drive sounded really good. My LPD 68 sounded good, and the 87. So, let's see. Yash 1331's got another great question. It says, can you please suggest a good semi-hollow or hollow guitar under $720? You know, that in itself is not only a great question, Yash, but it might be a great question for videos in general. Maybe that's something we should think about. This is one of the things I'm noticing. I think I talked about this 2 shows ago where I said a lot of the companies are sending me a lot of high-end guitars right now, which is very cool because it's like I said, I attribute it to or liken it to like being a car review channel, and Lamborghini and Mercedes are sending me cars to review, and this is cool because I get to check out these cars. Although deep down, we're really buying Toyota 4Runners and, you know what I mean, and Camrys and stuff. So so maybe that's not only a great idea for a semi-hollow, but maybe I should be doing videos in series of guitars, like guitars under $500, guitars under $1,000, guitars under $1,500, guitars, you know what I mean? And try to do it by category and then do a bunch of them. So like the Epiphones will all be that way, the hollow bodies. And normally I would suggest, this is how nervous I get. Normally for hollow bodies under 720, I would suggest the Epiphones and Ibanez's. I used to suggest the Washburns. I don't think they make them anymore. Sometimes you can find those used are really good, but Epiphones and Ibanez's are great, in my opinion, for under 720. However, as you hear somebody saying that a lot of the Epiphones are not good right now, but I'd have to put my hands on them. But yeah, those are the ones I would usually suggest. Also under 720, good hollow bodies. Oh, the Gretsch ones are pretty good, especially the Made in Korea ones. Now, generally they're going to be more than 720, but you can find them for 720. Greg Peterson, am I the only one that doesn't notice much difference in pickups? Greg, what's funny is, and I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to give away the milk before the cow, you know what I mean? Whatever the saying is, right? Don't give the milk away, right? Don't buy the cow if the milk's free. Is that the saying? Anyways, what's funny is I remember that dumb saying from a Laverne and Shirley rerun when I was like 12. So anyways, my point is, I want to tell you this, but I want to be careful how I say it. I sometimes would agree with you that it's hard to notice a difference in pickups. However, I would definitely say a life-changing event just recently. I mean, within the last week. So as you guys know, I'm doing these pickup videos, and what I will tell you is that in my life of, you know, working on guitars or building basses or selling the guitars out of the shop or, you know, whatever it is, or, you know, consulting for companies and now doing YouTube, whatever I've done, but I've always interacted with gear every day for the last 16, 17 years, maybe 17 years. Anyways, my point is I could only name maybe 1 or 2 instances where I was like, whoa, my whole perspective of things changed. And recently I just had one of those, and it was with this new guitar that lets me change the P90s, the single coils and stuff. It's that crazy how and it happened within seconds of interacting with this. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to share that with you guys. And of course I will be sharing with you guys, but I hope that it carries over what I'm saying. Because changing, yes, sometimes I think what I'm learning is that some pickups are actually so close to each other. That's why you don't hear a difference. Because I'm thinking that although we talk about the subtleties of pickups, there's subtleties, but then there's some dramatic differences. So it's all going to be put in perspective, and I'm really working on this. Sean Pierce Johnson's in the house, everybody. If you guys don't know his channel, I'll put a link to him. I've highlighted his channel before. Great channel. And he says, people are asking about the new Kiesel Gibson drama. Oh my goodness. What is the new Kiesel Gibson drama? You know, what's funny is I dare say I don't want to talk about it, but really what it is I'm sure, I don't know. I don't want to put, I don't know. So I'm curious, does anyone know what it is? And if it's relevant to anything that's, you know, gear related? Like, I don't care if they're mad at each other for silly things. Superjet 113 says, hey Sean, I'm a subscriber. Great NAMM coverage. I thought he did great NAMM coverage too. They especially since Sean Pierce Johnson, he was like, he made an announcement. He's like, I'm just going to enjoy the NAMM show and not do anything. And I go, oh, okay. And then I started getting his feed and I'm like, oh, he's doing stuff. So, so very cool. So let's see what else. Okay. All right. We don't want to start rumors. I've already been down this road before on this show, but I want to read this. So let me read it. Whenever you guys are talking about rumor stuff, let me read this first. Okay. So I want to preface this with, Sean's also confirming it again. I did one of these readout ones too, and I got publicly attacked by the people at Gibson. And I wasn't, so and all I was doing was what I'm doing now. So I'm a little gun shy, but I'm gonna read it. It's James Taylor, and then Sean Pierce is also saying too. I'm just reading this. Jeff Kiesel posted on Instagram that Gibson has sent him a cease and desist order for their V designed by his father in the 1980s. Any thoughts? So again, I'm going to first state that this is, at this point, it's just a rumor. It's something to talk about. This is a gear channel. We do want to talk about guitars. This is relevant to guitars. And here, so what are my thoughts? Well, as you guys know, I'm friends with the people at Framus Warwick, and Hans-Peter Wolfner, who owns Framus Warwick, won the lawsuit against Gibson last year for the V and for the other one, the Explorer. So he won 2 cases against Gibson last year, but only in Europe. So the reason I'm telling you that is that knowing that for sure, that is for sure, that Gibson did sue Hans, and he did fight them, and he won. And it was for the V and for the Explorer. So I would not be shocked that they would be also addressing that with other people, or fighting it in the U.S. court system as well, since they were actively doing it in the European system. I would imagine that the U.S. courts would be more important to them. U.S. trademark would be more important. Silly, you know what I mean? It's silly. Again, and when I say silly, again, this is my belief system. So I'm just going to tell you how I feel about body shapes. At this point, I feel like, after reflecting for many years, what I've really decided is that at some point, Fender and Gibson failed themselves to stop everyone from copying their instruments. That is how I feel. And the reason I feel that way is because since the day I went into the very first day I went into a music store as a little child, there was already fake Gibsons and Fenders everywhere. They were everywhere. And I don't mean fake like Chibsons. I mean fake like there was, you know, Jackson V's, and there was Ibanez RGs. There was stuff that looked like Fender and Gibson forever and ever and ever. And then I've been playing guitar now for decades. And now all of a sudden, now it's being addressed. And I understand it was probably addressed here and there throughout the years. But so you guys know, in the 90s, Fender sued Warmoth and Sadowski, and I think some other companies, and they lost that lawsuit. And that lawsuit deemed that the Fender body shapes, the Tele and the Strat, are now considered generic. And anybody can make that shape. Fender can own it. It's generic. They let it be produced so much. And that's the important part of this. And the reason I tell you this whole story is because this is what I say when I'm driving down the road. And I think about this every day when I'm driving down the road. I think about the legality of the design. I look at every truck and I can't tell what it is. I can't tell a Dodge from a Ford or a Toyota now, full-size truck when I'm driving down the road, the new ones, until I see the logos. So the point is, could you imagine if Ford and Chevy were just to start suing every car manufacturer? Well, it would be Toyota, Honda, and Nissan and Dodge for copying the pickup trucks. You know what I mean? And it would just be a disaster. So at this point, the public in the truck domain, I'm using trucks because it makes sense. In the world of trucks, the public has decided that that's how a truck is. It's an engine, a cab, and a bed. That's what a truck looks like, unless of course you're Tesla, and then a truck looks like a spaceship. But to everyone else, this is what a truck looks like. So what I'm saying is because I really believe trademarks should be enforced. In other words, I think nobody, although that's kind of funny, but I think that obviously Gibson's trademark and their headstocks are the intellectual property. I think Fender's headstock and their name, intellectual property. I think that as long as you're not confusing the consumer, you're not infringing on that. In other words, I think if somebody walks in a store and they clearly know they're buying a Jackson V and not a Gibson V, I don't know what the crime or the morality issue of that would be. Also, the reason I say that too, and again, everybody's gonna have different opinions, and if you have different opinions, put them in the comments down below, but do it like I'm doing, respectfully. Again, I'm not calling anyone that doesn't think like me an idiot. So treat each other kindly is what I'm trying to say. It's the only way you're going to change anybody's mind anyways. And if that's your goal, my goal is usually to either change my own mind or change somebody else's mind so that we can all get along. But my point to this is that when it comes to these guitars and how this functions, there's an important point that we don't want to lose, which is we want things to improve. And sometimes the best way to improve them is, hey, look, I can't copy this product, but I can make a product like it better. And that sometimes is better. So to answer what's going on, very long-winded now, about the Kiesel Gibson thing, it sucks to hear that because, well, first of all, at this point, who cares? You know what I mean? Kiesel, does Kiesel even offer a V now? Right? There are some version of it. I don't know what's going on out there. But I'll tell you this, like I said before, I hope I'm right again, because I've been right so far. I'm sure Gibson will lose. It just sucks because remember when the Dean thing came up, I said that it doesn't matter if they lose or not. Just getting sued and having to pay the cost and go through the hell is too much. So there you go. That's my thoughts on that subject. And it's really sad. You know what's sad here is about that too, on a side note, is I don't know if you guys saw, but Gibson did a public apology, and it was up on Guitar World, and then it was gone like after a day or two. In fact, I wanted to share it with people, and it was already gone. And it was basically them saying that, they shouldn't have done the Mark Agnesi Play Authentic video. And they said they inherited the lawsuits. In other words, that they had to do the lawsuits with companies because when they bought the new Gibson, the new company bought Gibson, they inherited all those lawsuits that were already I don't know if that's true, although I've heard things from some of the people that were being sued that's contrary to what seemed to be going on. But again, I can't officially tell you an answer because I don't know. I'm not part of that. But it just seems like this doesn't sound like they inherited a lawsuit from Kiesel. It looks like they're up to something. So sad. I hope it's sad. My heart goes out to Kiesel. I like them, actually, as you know. And I like Gibson. Think about this. In the last month, I've gotten a Kiesel, in the last 2 months, I've gotten a Kiesel and a Gibson. And I like them both. So, yeah, BB Mad says, inherited lawsuits, ? You know what? I'm glad you put that, because I'll tell you, when I read that, I was like, what? And so, when I talked to Hans Peter last year, and I think in February, last year, he was stressed about his lawsuit with Gibson. And I asked him, I said, well, have you talked to the new company? And he said, I talked to him in January. And again, I feel okay sharing the story. And I said, oh, did you talk? So you talked to the new CEO? And he goes, I did. And he said, what? And I said, what did he say? And he said, he'll look into it. And then he said a month later, they're still going to do the lawsuit. And so nothing changed for them. So again, I don't know if, anything ever happened. I don't know how deliberate all that was, but I'm just telling you. All right. Let's see. What else do we got? Now we went down that road. Let's try to end on a positive note. It's Valentine's Day and it's a guitar channel and we want to talk positive. So let's try to end this in the next 5 minutes with something cool. Hey, here's a thought. Everybody should go and buy a Kiesel for Hey, they're having a President's Day sale. I saw that. I am not sponsored or endorsed by Gibson or Kiesel or anyone. Anything any company's done for me, they've all done for me, or any company's not done for me, they pretty much all have not done for me. So the reason I say that is, I obviously love my new Gibson, that light, and I recommend it highly. But also there's sales on Kiesel, and maybe you could just, if you like Kiesel, it's a good time to support them. You get a deal. I think it's like, I have to look. I thought it said something like free upgrades and stuff. I know, because I was planning like maybe this weekend I need to be looking at another Kiesel. So, all right. Yeah, and BC Rich 581, as always, good to see you. BC Rich 581 says this is not inherited. Apparently, this sounds like a new lawsuit. That's my point too, as well. Is that it's funny that article comes out and says that they didn't really mean to sue people. They inherited this, and now they're actively up to stuff. And so here's what I really hate. It's a conflict. And again, I know I said I was going to end on this, but I just want to say this. This is a conflict where I am at. I really think a company is due their. I think everybody's due their dues. In other words, if you work hard, you should reap the rewards, not somebody else. So I understand that Gibson, has these products and they should reap the rewards. And I'm conflicted. I believe that. But I also don't like watching stuff like this where obviously there's a million companies copying the V's. There's obviously the V's have been substantiated out there. There's all this stuff. And I'm not a legal expert. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just telling you my emotional feeling. But I want to tell you, though, is that Framus, Warwick, and Kiesel, what they have in common, and even Dean, but not so much Dean to these guys. These guys are insanely small compared to Gibson. So it's perspectively wise, right? I mean, Gibson at one point was claiming they were doing $1 billion a year, right? I don't feel comfortable telling you the number, but Jeff Kiesel told me their number that they do yearly, and I don't feel comfortable telling you what that. But I want to tell you is that same with Hans Peter Wolfner, those guys. I mean, it's probably not much. They probably don't make much more than the advertising budget of Gibson. You know what I mean? Think about that. Put that in perspective to see that. And so I don't know. You get the idea. All right. We're going to do something. Hey, here's good. Here, we'll start with something positive, and it's great. Dead Shred 999 says, how did the Kramers look at the NAMM show? They looked great. I'm very excited about the Kramers. The Kramers are one of those things where, again, this is the positive thing about Gibson. I want Gibson to focus on guitars, make more Kramers, make better Epiphones, make more better Gibsons. This is what I want. I think we all want this. I think deep down, a lot of us who like these Gibson want to give them money. Kramer, I would love to get a cool Kramer, right? And that Dave the Snake Sabu one looked fantastic. So yeah, they look great. Although I didn't get put my hands on them. So you know. What else do we got? And then let's do a couple more like fun ones. Hold on a second. Remember, do a question mark first. Oh, here's one. David Muniz says, "Hey Phil, great to see you. Did you check out the new Omnis series from Fano?" I did. It was I was brief, but I did. Fano is made here in Arizona. They're not far from my house. They're probably 40 minutes because I'm 40 minutes from like anything downtown Phoenix, so you can get anywhere in this town in about an hour. So they can't be more than an hour from me at max. And that was the new import line. So the Omnis series is the new import line of Fano, and I thought it was cool because isn't like Eastwood also doing some kind of licensed guitar that's like licensed from the Fano, so it makes sense to do a Fano import guitar. So looked really cool. And then they mentioned again that they would like to have me come. They have a new facility, and they said maybe I can come out and check it out. I would love to do that. If they're ever watching this, or if any of you guys know them, just a good poke at them and let them know, hey, Phil's totally up for it. It's only an hour drive. I got my camera and we can do a cool video. You guys can see Fanos. I would love to just review a Fano or two, and maybe the new Omnis import series of Fano guitars, and then maybe show you some stuff, how they make them, and maybe how they set up, and check out the import ones, and maybe see how they keep the quality on the import ones really good. That'd be interesting stuff to see, since it's right here. Like I said, they invited me at one point, but then I think it's because they moved or something happened. But again, I would be up for doing that for sure. And then Sunday Matinee says that he thinks I missed a super chat question. Is very, very possible. Let me go look, because in fact there's a couple. And let me hit these out real quick. So Sarang has another super chat question. His is, thanks for your views, Phil. I also had another question. Assuming the nut is correctly cut, does a Strat need 2 string trees? Well, the string trees have nothing to do with how well the nut is cut. The string trees have to do with how much downward force is being put down on the nut. And so, unfortunately, whether your nut is cut correctly or not, that doesn't really matter. The question becomes, so the answer is, with staggered tuning keys, that's how they're getting away from that. Now they say that if you have staggered tuning keys, and usually staggered tuning keys are 3 keys at one height, and then the next 3 high keys, the high strings, treble strings, are at a lower height. And so with those, you only need 1 string tree. And that's how I run my staggered guitars. If you see my Strats, like my custom shop Strat, so you know, has staggered tuning keys on it. When the custom shop built it, they didn't put a string tray on it. I was actually not upset. I just wasn't happy about it. I told them, I said, hey, I want a string tree. And they go, you don't need it. And after playing it, I kept pulling the stupid B string out of the nut. And I'm like, yep, and I obviously need it. So I put a string tree on the guitar. So my opinion for Strats and Strat type guitars is, if you have staggered tuning keys, you don't need 2 string trees. You can get away with 1. So if you have the tall ones all the way across, I would go with 2 string trees. And the only exception I've seen to this is, if you look at the Eric Johnson Strat, I think he doesn't have a string tree. I can't remember. But the Eric Johnson Strat, not only does it have staggered keys, they actually shave the headstock down, and they sand it from the top. So it's actually has the tuning keys are lower. In other words, you get the idea. There's more of a curve after the nut. So it's about downward force. So and there's a great option. If you guys saw, when I did a video, I did 2 videos for Stu Mac on their channel, and one of the things I showed was their cool string tree that does 3 strings. That is cool. I'll put a link to that, so you can get that on their site if you're interested in that. I highly recommend that. I was really, really concerned about that. That's one of those things where I would be like, if I saw it, like when you see it, you're going to be like, I don't know if that's going to work, because that's a lot of force pulling on it, but it worked great. Fantastic option. It's a great way to take 1 string tree and give you that what you really need, which is 3 instead of the 4. So I'll put a link to that. Check that out. In fact, I need to put that on one of my guitars. Okay, so John Gonzalez says, I'm hanging my guitars now. Okay, cool. Is there a particular hanger that won't cause neck rash? Thanks. I trust String Swing. Now, what you're going to find with and this is why I trust String Swing. One, it's the only wall hanger I've ever used. Okay. When I say ever, yeah, I mean ever. I don't think I've ever used a string swings and my store was all string swings for years. And I've said the story so many times. The first store I had was 1,400 square feet. When I moved to 3,200 square feet, I ripped them all out of the walls and put them in the new store, and still used them. And then I had them for years after that. So my point is, they are great. String Swing, I've asked them about this. They will not state whether or not they're safe for lacquer guitars. And because of course they don't want the legal liability, even though we all seem to be okay with them. I've never had any issues with any lacquer burns. However, you can wrap cloth around them as if you're that worried about this. What causes lacquer burns is usually the rubber causes the finish to not, because the lacquer breathes. I know it sounds weird. People talk about this. It's just what it is. Apparently, if the oxygen can't move, it's burns, it gets hot. And there's somebody out there is probably a lacquer expert, can tell you more detail about that. I generally just need to know what it's doing, which is if you suffocate the lacquer, it's going to burn against the rubber. So I trust the string swings. That's what I trust. And when I say I trust it, my expensive lacquer guitars are on my string swings. So that's what I use. I don't have any special hangers for that. The only thing I do is what I do, and I've never had one burn. The only thing I do though is I don't keep them on there for long periods of time. When I mean long period of time, it's like not more than a week or two at a time. In other words, I take them off and I play them, you know what I mean? Make sure they get moved around. But if you're really that worried, you can wrap cloth around the hangers, but I would recommend string swing. Some other recommendations out there, so I'm sure some people have some great recommendations, but I only use string swing. Once I found something worked, I trusted it and I did it. So, you know, I've let my guitars hang and I waited for the burn and it never happened. But I've seen a ton of people wrap cloth around string swings because they say, you know, yeah, I can burn, but I haven't had it happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Doesn't mean you're not taking your guitars in your own hands if you're going to use them too. But I'm telling you, only thing I can tell you, I have had Gibson guitars with lacquer and other lacquer guitars on my string swing floor stand, my string swing side stands, my string swing wall hangers for years. I don't have one guitar that has a burn in it anywhere. So that's what I recommend. They're made in the USA and they're a great company. And literally, you know, I have nothing but good things to say. They've gotten all my money over the years for hangers, and there's a reason why. So 94 Dodge Dude. That's a good sign on. 94 Dodge Dude. Hey, Phil, do you need gauged files to lower a nut slot? Also, how do you know when the slot height is correct? Thanks for all the insight. You don't need them. I have a video and that shows you a trick. So the trick is you could take a piece of fine sandpaper and wrap it around a string gauge that's slightly smaller than the gauge. So let's say you need to cut the slot on the nut, and the slot is let's say a 17 gauge string. You can get a smaller gauge string, like a 15 gauge string, and wrap a piece of sandpaper around it, small piece of sandpaper, let's say something that's like 400 grit or higher, maybe 450, and then just slightly sand that nut slot. That if you're just trying to move a little bit, that's all you got to do. And how do you know the nut slot height is correct? Well, you can use a gap gauge. You can use all kinds of stuff. The measurement, I don't go off a measurement. What I go off of is I first set the action. So the way I do it is this. I follow, you know, what we saw Ron Thorne call it the train method. I never called it that. Obviously, that's his thing, but I followed that method, which is first I tune the guitar, and then I what is it? You tune the guitar, then you do the relief on the neck. In other words, set the relief on the neck. Then you adjust the action, which is your saddles on your bridge. And then you set the intonation on the guitar. And then he said in is for noodle, and a lot of people said in is for nut. And I believe he actually meant nut, but I think he wanted to keep it easy for everybody. So he said noodle, you know, like play. But at that point, that's when I would do the nut. I do the nut last. And so at that point, what I would do is make sure that the gap, and everybody has a different measurement on this, and you can look this up, but I actually make sure that if the guitar is right, I want the nut cut to a depth where when I push my finger down on the 3rd fret of the guitar, I want the string to barely touch the 1st fret. So that's, you know, or touch it, to be honest with you. I want it on there. But again, there's specific measurements. I can put a link to sheets. I have sheets that tell you that stuff, but that's how I do it, generally speaking. Again, it's a little tough. And I know we talked about doing one live show from the shop, and we'll be doing that. I think I'm going to decide the last episode every month will be in my shop for these type of questions. The convert says, just got my first Gibson Les Paul Standard, new 60s. I love it, but I think the 61s are fine, but not awesome. Yeah, I feel the same way. I'd rather put 57s or BB1s and 2s in it, but I'm concerned about the trade value. Thoughts? Thanks. It wouldn't devalue the guitar. You got to understand if you got a Les Paul 60s guitar, I'm assuming it's newer, especially since it's got 61s. I'm assuming it's a 2019 or newer, but it doesn't matter if it's not at least, 20 years old. The point is swapping out your Gibson pickups or other Gibson pickups are not going to devalue the guitar. In fact, I'll tell you what will add sometimes value to guitar, not even to a vintage guitar, is I love it when this happens. And you guys put comments down below if you love it too. I love it when somebody puts a guitar like that on Craigslist or Reverb and says, 1960s Les Paul, upgraded to 57 pickups, original 61s in the case. You're like, oh, sweet. It's right. I can swap and have both. So no, you wouldn't hurt the value. So go ahead and upgrade them to the 57s or the burst buckers, ones or twos. And then, like I said, just keep the original ones in the case. If you ever sell it, you know, you might have to either put the original ones back, which will save you money if you do it that way. Put the original ones back and keep your 57s or BBs. But if you don't want to swap them, then you leave the ones you put in there, but give them the originals. They love it. Trust me. It's nothing better than getting a guitar with options. I love it. Do you guys love it when you get a guitar and I bought used and the guitar was like, you know, it'll be like, I don't know, what one did I have? I think it was a guitar that had upgraded bare knuckles in it. And it was like upgraded bare knuckles, but original pickups in case. And you're like, sweet. So there you go. And then Lefty Guitar said, let us pretend you for some reason lied and were arrogant on YouTube. Would you apologize in a video or just pretend it never happened? Your thoughts? That's interesting. Well, it depends. You know what I mean? What I mean by depends is I can only tell you, again, I don't know what I would have done. That's the thing. I'm laughing. I'm like, I don't know what I've done. Well, I can tell you right now, I'm generally an apologetic person by nature. It's true. Like I'm some people suffer from this, you know. I'm the type of person that apologizes for things I didn't do wrong. You know what I mean? So I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry that happened. They're like, you didn't do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry it happened. I'm not proud of that, by the way. That's not like an attribute I'm proud of, but it is an attribute I have. But generally speaking, it would depend. If I thought, if I did something wrong and I thought apologizing would help, and if it was the right thing to do, I would definitely do it. I don't know if I'd pretend it ever happened. So it just depends. I don't know. That's a tough question, especially since I'm public. You know what I mean? It's a public thing. What I would do, I'll tell you this, I try to hit everything head on. If it's something that I did wrong. I don't have a whole lot of experience with this because I've had whatever issues I've had publicly on YouTube. It was always somebody got upset with me about something. And I didn't necessarily, I want to say I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't necessarily have anything that I could specifically apologize for. You know what I mean? There wasn't like yes, I'm sorry I said that. It was more of like okay, I'm sorry you felt that way. You know what I mean? So, but what I would tell you is this. Here's what I would tell you. I can tell you that I usually like to reach out to the person that's upset. Because usually if you're upsetting that's a better way to put it. So if I upset a bunch of you guys, I would probably publicly apologize. If I upset a person, I just contact that person and say, look, that's not my intent. I'm not here to upset anyone or do anything wrong. But, and there you go. It's a tough thing. I know subjects like this, I said, let's end on a positive note, but stuff like this, I understand it's a tough thing. Especially out there. And we've seen it all on this forum, this whole thing when it's public, and it's tricky. It's tricky. But I will tell you this, everything, especially doing as many live shows. This is my 145th live show. That means there's over 150 hours, because they usually go over an hour, over 150 hours of me talking about all kinds of subjects. Obviously, I've probably said stuff I now disagree with. I've probably said stuff that's definitely upset people. I mean, it's actually tapered off. But so on the average live show, I lose about 20 subscribers per live show. And which is funny because I do about 35, 40 questions. So literally half the answers I give makes a person get upset with me and disengage. And I'm sure sometimes it's as simple as something like, oh, PRS is cool, but, and they go, no, it's not. And they whatever they get upset about, whatever you trigger them for. So, I mean, I can't apologize for every single thing I've ever done to anybody that's done that. But I generally think the best rule of thumb is, like I told you about feedback, I take all feedback seriously. First, that's the best thing you can do. There's no such thing as invalid feedback. The way feedback is given sometimes is wrong. What I mean by wrong is you could say, hey, Phil, whatever. I don't want to give an analogy, but you get the idea. People have sometimes been horribly rude and inconsiderate in the way they've told me some information. Doesn't make the information less valid. It just makes me not like the way the delivery is. But I still have to acknowledge the information. So for instance, if somebody says, hey, your video looks grainy and crappy as crap, I might not like the way they said that, and I don't have to appreciate the way they told it to me or like it. But if I'm smart, which I try to be, I will consider the fact that I need to look at my footage and see what it is that they're seeing. So there you go. So that's my answer. So that's my thoughts. Try to do that. But also try to treat everybody with respect. I find that takes you a really, really long way. People say it's called to being nice, and I find everybody's got it wrong. The one thing that's tough for me publicly, and I mean tough for me to relay to you guys, is that it's harder to be nice than it is to be a jerk. It is harder. It's a lot easier to be a jerk. When people are like, oh, you should let them have it. I'm like, yeah, that's the easy way out. The hard way is to actually look at something and say, okay, what's the positive of this? So there you go. And then the last question is Metalhead Hippie. Hey, Metalhead Hippie, I haven't seen you in a while. Actually, I got two more. So Metalhead Hippie says, Phil, are you and Lewis ever going to do a music video together? You will be my Valentine. Please. Hugs, bro. Oh, thank you. You know, he's going to do another music video. I don't know. He might ask me to do that. The last one, I think he asked me to do bass, and I think it's because we were traveling. I couldn't do anything. I would love to do that. I would do that for anybody. I would love to do collab music stuff. Are you kidding? That's great. In today's day and age. I mean, obviously TK is my friend, but it'd be cool just to do that with, music stuff. Cause I get to do that sometimes. I get to go to a studio and record with a friend and do stuff like that. It's great. And then SG Flying, but thanks, Metalhead Hippie. That's a great suggestion, by the way, on top of that. SG Flying V says Graphtech string saver saddles were worth a punt. I don't know. Worth it. I'm gonna say worth it. Are they worth it? Well, you know what it is. I put some on a guitar. Like I said, I did the Sharpen My Axe because, again, I've had mixed feelings about them over the years. At some point, I loved them, then I hated them. But what I've learned is, some people say they mellow out your sound. Some people say they make it too bright. What I've really learned is that I like them better than the cheap saddles that come in a lot of guitars. When I mean cheap pot metal kind of saddles. So if you don't get good quality saddles, sometimes those are a great replacement for those. So are they worth it? They're worth it. They're worth it to me. I've enjoyed the ones I put on guitars. I've never wanted them, but here, actually what I was going to say is I've put them on so many guitars for customers, and the customers are always so happy. And it became one of those things that I've learned that even though for some reason I don't go, oh, I need that, I have found so much success with other players doing it that I tend to recommend them for other players. But me, I've never put them on my guitars because I've never really felt a need to change the tone that way on the guitar. It's because a lot of my guitars, although I mod guitars, I mostly mod guitars, and you've seen this, even the Sharpen My Axes, mostly I mod other people's guitars. If you look at my guitars, they're almost all unmodded. Very few of my guitars get modified. And it's because I mod guitars for other people, and and modding guitars for people is very enjoyable, and teaching people how to mod their guitars is very enjoyable. But what's really enjoyable for me sometimes is buying a guitar I don't have to do anything to. That's what's really enjoyable to me. So, especially it gets worse as the years go on. I just want to buy a guitar I instantly like that way, that I don't have to change, because I'm going to be working on guitars all week. I don't need another guitar. I'm not looking for another project, is what I'm trying to say. All right. On that note, we will call it, except for, I got one last one. Josh Jake Finnegan says, hey, Phil, keeping up with the TTM guitar scam? You know what? I have not been, but TTM guitars, I've heard nothing but crazy stuff for years about them, ups and downs. So I haven't heard anything recently about them. TTM is a company that I mentioned. If you watched my video where I went to Sam Ash and bought a guitar, that video, I saw a TTM guitar. And TTM standard for taller than midgets, but they call it TTM. Please don't kill the messenger. I'm just repeating what the company is called. So if it offends anybody, it's just, again, I'm just telling you guys so you guys are aware. I want you to be aware of what it is. But that's not, I don't think, the drama. I think they've always had some kind of issues. This industry is plagued with a lot of crazy stuff like that. In fact, nothing I've ever heard about that company is different than any other company, or not any, but tons of other companies I've heard. There's always some kind of stuff out there and stuff. And that's why, like I said, hopefully what I care about, let me tell you what I care about, and then we'll end on this note. And it'll be positive and hopefully informative. What I care about, if you guys know, is that whatever I've recommended to you, it be right. Because that's why I'm very scrutinize what I do and say, is because it's very important to me that if I'm recommending something to you, that it's something I've had a good experience with and I continue to have a good experience with, because here's what I've learned. I've learned that you'll watch me for entertainment, but if you take one of my recommendations and it's not very good, it doesn't matter how entertaining or not entertaining I am, you'll never watch me again. So on that note, I'm going to let you guys go so you can enjoy Valentine's Day weekend. And I hope you guys get to play music for somebody you love. How about that? We'll end on that note. I want to thank all the patrons who support the channel. I want to thank you guys for supporting the channel as well. Look for a cool video, the Steve Vai interview video. I released it to the patrons today. So my plan is to get that out to you guys on Sunday. Because I usually use the patrons to tell me if there's anything I should add, change, or adjust. And they're like kind of like my, what do you call it? They're like my editing crew. They can, tell me if there was a mistake or something weird in the cuts. So, and on that note, and remember, if you don't have any friends to play guitars with this weekend, that's why you need a looping pedal. I'm just saying that because that's what I love about looping pedals. All right. On that note, I'll thank you guys and I'll talk to you next week. And until next week, know your gear. Oh, and there you go.